Everything fell apart and I went to train. This is why. I strongly believe it's essential to see training, mental health and emotional well-being as one integrated unit because our thoughts, self-image, goals and emotions determine what we're capable of, not just in the gym, but in life itself. But what happens when your life falls apart in the meantime? You've heard me say countless times, training isn't just physical exercise, it's a reflection of life, a reality in a small space, governed by the same rules as out there in the real world. Struggle, pain, perseverance, and renewal. In today's video, you will get to know me a bit better. The human being behind the machine, the soul who stood up time and time again, and whom training didn't just sustain, but saved. I will show you how training lifted me up when nothing else worked, how it shaped me into someone unstoppable, and why I firmly believe that no matter how bad things get in your life, giving up training is never an option. Ever. Either life pushes you outside your comfort zone or you do it yourself. Sometimes both happen at once. You have a choice. You can consciously decide to step into a challenging period, a project or a life situation that puts you outside your comfort zone in order to grow. This could mean starting a new business, learning a new skill, or even moving halfway around the world to level up, because there's simply no other way forward. Then there's the other side when you don't get to choose. When unexpected events or a series of events happen to you that you have little or no control over. Your hearts get broken, you lose someone close to you. You have to watch people you love suffer, get sick, or pass away. Opportunities you worked years for slip through your fingers. You fall into financial crisis, feeling like nothing is in your control anymore. Even one of these things will be enough to completely knock you down. But life isn't always that kind. Because as we all know, hardships rarely come alone. Usually they pile on top of each other. And that's exactly what happened to me. Not once, not twice, countless times. Usually, just one of these blows is enough to shake you. But when they hit you continuously, one after another, sooner or later, life sends you straight to the floor. And that's where the crucial questions comes in. What do you do then? If completely understandable, if your first reaction is to surrender to the pain, to let yourself fall apart a little, to just lie in bed, watching some random Netflix show you couldn't care less about. You don't feel like doing anything at all. You would rather sleep all day, and by evening you realize that instead of making things better, it actually made everything worse. You feel even emptier, it's even harder to get up, and day by day you sink deeper and deeper into that pit. So what should you do? Choose the pain. At some point, you realize that life mostly has more tough and painful moments in store for you than happy ones. That's just how it works. No matter how perfectly curated your Instagram profile might be, even if you're just trying to convince yourself that everything is fine, even if it's just self-deception. When you lie in bed at night, you're alone with yourself, with your conscience and its voice. And that voice never lies. I know this will sound strange now, but we need all of this. All of the disappointments, all of the pain, all of the hardships, all of the challenges. Because stop now for a moment, close your eyes, and think about this. How many happy moments forced you to change, to grow, to leave behind the person you once were? Pain is necessary. These experiences teach you to appreciate the brighter days, the happy moments, the smallest things, moments that later become treasured memories. They help you understand and better manage the emotional spectrum of life, the highs and lows alike. Plenty of coaches, books, or speakers will tell you things like, wait until your life sails into calmer waters, or stop for a moment and follow your heart. But here's what I say. No, don't wait. And no, don't stop. Because if you don't consciously transfer the energy and motivation that comes from anger, pain, and frustration you experienced in your life, you have no idea how much potential growth you're leaving on the table. And that's exactly where training steps into the picture. Negative motivation, positive outcome. I grew up feeling like nobody believed me. And I mean nobody. I spent a lot of time alone, and from a very young age I felt somehow different. Perhaps that's why I was always drawn to unusual, extraordinary things. Over time, this feeling intensified, and eventually I became convinced I couldn't truly rely on anyone but myself. I wished I could belong somewhere, but no matter how much I tried, I always felt I didn't fit in anywhere. so all that remained was the drive to prove myself. Something closely related. Responsibility came into my life at a very young age. First given to me, later willingly embraced. This significantly shaped my mindset, my values, essentially forming the core of who I become today. At 19, I opened my first school with just 3 students. 1 year later, I stood in front of 100. That's where I began seriously teaching acrobatics. And although some of my students were the same age as me, right from the beginning I clearly decided that I would never let anyone from my student circle get too close to me. That was the price I had to pay. I had one job and one job only: to give my absolute best to those who came to train with me, to bring out everything hidden within them. Nothing was ever more important to me than this. By the age of 21, I was already considered one of the professionals in the Hungarian dance scene when I received a blow that, although by no means the first, became one of the most defining moments of my life. During a rehearsal for an event, my choreographer at the time harshly compared us to the guys who had been hired as models for the same show. I clearly remember his words. "Look at yourself. Your abs aren't even defined. It's so embarrassing to step on stage like this. Stand next to those guys and compare." Truth be told, there were very few people whose opinion truly mattered to me, but his definitely did. If you've ever been an athlete, you know how much it matters how your chosen coach sees you. That's exactly why this hit so hard. I stood there, shattered, feeling like I'd failed deeply and personally. But I also vividly remember that it only took a few hours for this pain to transform into something completely different. I performed in this mental state and afterwards heading home feeling totally crushed. These thoughts kept echoing inside my head. As soon as I arrived home, I sat down immediately at my computer to research every possible piece of information on how I could change my life, because by that point, I'd already made a crystal clear decision. Alright, starting tomorrow, everything changes. And from the next day, everything did. I always thought it was a problem that my main drive almost never came for pursuing success, but rather from the fear of failure. Because everyone around me insisted that motivation should come from a happy place. For me, that was almost never the case. This is what they call avoidance motivation. It's when your main driving force isn't achieving a positive goal, but rather avoiding a negative experience. I wasn't interested in having a six-pack or looking good. I simply never wanted to hear that sentence again as long as I lived. So I consciously started going to the gym and put together my very first diet using only the tiny handful of information that was available online back then. I desperately wanted to prove to myself more than anyone else that I could do it. This determination drove me to that point where within just 3 months, my transformation photos were liked by hundreds of thousands of people on some of the world's most popular fitness pages on Facebook at the time. And on YouTube, around 2013, almost 1 million people watched the small, amateurish video I made mostly just for myself. A significant part of who you see today is the result of that one painful sentence, the chain reaction it triggered, and the decision I made afterward. At 24, I was deeply in love with a girl. When our relationship ended after several years, I hit rock bottom, harder than ever before. I could barely eat, my mind was obsessively fixated on this for months, and I constantly blamed myself for what had happened. During this period, the only logical lifeline for me was training and work. These became the areas where I could release and process the overwhelming pain and deep emotions inside me. This was the place where success was possible again. During workouts, I could silence the relentless inner dialogue in my head, and I pushed myself so hard that every night I literally collapsed into the bed. Yet somehow, while I was crumbling inside, my life was still moving upwards. It was at this time that I started the 115 official fitness team, initially with only 10 people. Within a year, the team's name had become known, and more than 100 people attended the classes regularly. Back then, I couldn't yet see the connection between the emotional chaos I was experiencing and the resulting investment of energy into my work, but eventually I understood. Whatever happened in my life, training and work were the 2 areas I never let go of. Later, when my classes were in full swing, right before one of my evening group sessions, I received a phone call that introduced me for the first time to the feeling of losing someone close to you, someone leaving this world and moving on. It happened in the morning. I was still half asleep when the news came. I stood there, completely lost, unable to process or comprehend what was happening around me. My family gathered, but just a few hours later, I had to be in a meeting discussing an event I was organizing. I could have canceled my evening class and I know they would have understood, but at that point I hadn't even told them, and canceling wasn't an option in my head. Only 1 or 2 people knew what had happened before the evening session. They asked if I was right. I told them, just watch. Today's class will tear the roof off this place. I led that workout with a huge smile, explosive energy, and endless passion. At the end of the session, I asked everyone to sit down for a moment and I shared what had happened to me earlier that day. Not because I wanted their empathy, I never needed that, but because I wanted them to know. I wanted them to learn something through my experience, something they could carry forward into their own future. I wanted to teach them more than just push-ups, to show them through a real-life example that life will always bring challenges, disruptions, and unexpected circumstances, and that we always have a choice in how we respond. In moments like these, exactly moments like this, you truly find out who you are. This is when your true message emerges, both for yourself and for the world. Besides my extreme training sessions, I repeatedly made conscious decisions to put myself in situations outside my comfort zone. I always wanted to know who the person was that awaited me at the end of these struggles. I was considered a successful coach and athlete in Hungary. Thousands knew my name, and I had the privilege of teaching at least as many people. My life was good, stable, comfortable, even enviable. Yet, in 2023, I made the decision to leave Hungary. I left behind my family, my team, my sponsors, my well-established career, and everyone I loved, literally everyone. I moved to Miami because deep down I felt I wanted to explore more, discover more about myself, and push further in life. I knew I had more potential within me, and I also knew that this was something I absolutely had to experience firsthand. One consequence of this decision was that over the past 2 years, I faced an enormous amount of pain and difficulty, challenges that I consciously chose. There were more than just 1 or 2 moments that hit me so much harder than I ever expected, moments more painful than anything else I would previously encountered in my life. But you know what? During these 2.5 years, I didn't skip a single workout. Every single time I showed up at the gym, and every single time I became just a little bit stronger. Every session moved me inch by inch closer to understanding myself, growing, and creating a better version of who I am. Every workout helped me navigate through the whirlwind of emotions and doubts within me. Consistency was what kept me alive, especially when I felt the most lost and alone, reminding me why I would make such enormous sacrifices and why I would left everything and everyone behind. And slowly, things started moving upward. By the time you're watching this, the final form application has already been released. It was developed entirely here in the US through over 15 months of continuous effort. I can honestly say it's the biggest project I've ever undertaken, all while my life was falling apart. Training saved my life. Training is an uncompromising mirror. No matter how you look at it or how you turn it, it always shows you the truth. It contains everything that life itself does. Pain in the exercises, discipline in your diet, and the weight of decisions that can lead to either health or injury. And after every failure, you learn continuously. You learn how to fight, you learn how to fail again and again and again until you're finally able to push your ego aside for the sake of your own growth. You learn how to say no, that inner voice, the one that eventually starts screaming, "Stop, you can't take this anymore. You are weak, you've got nothing left." And one day you will suddenly realize the voice has disappeared. And in its place, there's silence, and in that silence, you will finally hear your true self. The self that was just waiting for you to find it, to build it up. Training teaches humility because it shows you how small you truly are. It teaches you pride in your achievements, yet never lets you settle because it always whispers, "There's more in you." And that's exactly what keeps you on track. Training is therapy. If you build yourself here in silence, with humility alone, I promise you, you will conquer whatever awaits you out there, because from this point on, failure simply isn't an option. In a few years after you've gone through all this, come back to this video. Then you won't just understand what I'm talking about, you will feel it too. I created this channel because I've always wanted to help others in some way. My past pain can become your motivation for tomorrow. Training is just the first step. The real change is you.